Welcome back, family, to part 3 of our episode of Back to School during the pandemic. This episode, we're going to talk to 2 principals, and we're actually going to bring in a parent to get a parent's perspective. Now, also, keep in mind, the past few weeks, the coronavirus has kind of spiked. And they're talking about opening schools in the fall. And the president is actually forcing them to open the schools in the fall. And we're quite concerned. So we just need to know, is it safe? And that's what everyone wants to know. Today, as I said, we're speaking to 2 principals and a parent to get her perspective. Our first principal is Assistant Principal Jonathan Hall. Jonathan is a Morehouse College alum. He received his BA in political science. He is also an alumnus of Johns Hopkins University, where he received his master's in secondary education. Recently, he's been promoted to assistant principal at Fayette County High School, and he is quite excited about this new journey. Dr. Andrew Lovett is a 17-year veteran in the Atlanta public school system. He received his Bachelor of Science degree in mathematics from John C. Smith University. In 2017, Dr. Lovett was featured in NPR for his efforts in working to turn around his elementary school, Benteen Elementary. This episode, we're going to welcome Keisha Hull. She currently serves as a Career Academy Specialist for Gwinnett County Public Schools. She is charged with college and career counseling and assisting high school juniors and seniors with developing an individualized post-secondary plan. And in her spare time, she serves as a mentor and enjoys giving back to the community. Let's welcome all of our guests to the show today. Welcome, everybody.
Hello.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Yes. Keisha, thank you so much for joining us today. So I want you to kind of give us a perspective from the parents' end. And look, you also work in the public school system. So you're getting it from both ends. So how does that work for you?
I am. And if I can be completely honest, if that's all right, I'm overstimulated and overwhelmed. Okay. That's exactly what that means when you actually work in the school district, and then you have a child within the school district. As many of us are aware, it's now time for us to, here in Georgia, make a decision whether our students or our children will go back to school face-to-face learning or choose the digital or virtual learning option. That's what we are being faced with at this point. I know that some districts, again, I'm in Gwinnett, and I'm not speaking on behalf of Gwinnett County, but just as a parent, these are the 2 options that we were given, and perhaps other counties can speak to what they're doing. But we need to make a decision fairly soon, and it's not an easy one. And you have to kind of consider that nothing's cookie cutter. Every family, every household is different. Every household has a different level of supports that they can offer their children, and some maybe not as many. So so it's not just, let's protect them from COVID. It is also, do we have the tools at home? And some of parents have to work outside of the home. So a high school student, there's a different way of thinking or making that choice versus an elementary or middle school kid. So lots of decisions to be made, and it's not an easy one, especially as a parent, where we just want to protect our kids.
And you know what? When you said COVID, it kind of triggered something for me. I gotta tell you, they're acting like COVID is the only germ that's out there. We still have the flu and other viruses out there. I understand that this, a whole lot more people die of, from the flu and other stuff that has been, I'm not trying to minimize COVID-19. Now, don't get me wrong. By no means. But they're not talking about that. And Andrew, I appreciate how you said that you were putting things in place before this even happened. You were putting the hand sanitizing stations around your school before it even happened. So you were, being proactive. Keisha, do you have any questions, any concerns you want to ask our principals?
You know what? It's funny, and I'm just going to take your words from you. We're fighting more than just COVID because there's another virus going around, and it's called racism. And as a parent, and I know that's kind of heavy, maybe at the beginning here, but this is our reality as students are coming back to school. Right? So that's the question that I have for you. How are as an administrator, how are you preparing not only to ensure that our students are safe as far as COVID is concerned, what measures are in place, but also it can't be back to school as usual. It can't be. What kind of conversations are you having around the racial tension that's happening as well? I know those are two loaded guns, but those are two things that our students are coming back to school in the midst of.
Okay, Andrew. We'll go with you first. And Jonathan can come in after.
That's a great question. As one, being an African American male, like just you worry and wonder about how do you frame the conversation in such a way that your intent is not lost in translation. And the elementary school is very different because again, we are fortunate, as I spoke in the last segment, about how we focus so much on social emotional learning and the well-being of the student that we have not had any racial issues at our school. Our children, I think, have now, in light of everything that's happened the last few weeks and months, have become more aware of their differences. But I feel like one of the things we will continue to focus on is social emotional learning and use that as the lens to bridge the gap and start the conversation. Our school district does a very good job of we have books of the month for our social emotional learning program. And part of the books of the month, they do a great job of picking representation that of different ethnic groups that live within our district. We have books that feature students of color, students of the majority race. So they do a very intentional job of making sure that they hear from multiple perspectives. I also think it's important that my staff is diverse and reflects who we are as a school. And so we have been very intentional in hiring to make sure that we have someone on our staff who every child can relate to and understand and communicate with. And so we have been talking about the likelihood of, how do we have this conversation with students, but more importantly, how do we approach the conversation with parents? Because the children tend to adjust quicker than the parents. I'm fortunate. Many of my parents are so welcoming, and almost all my parents are very welcoming, very supportive, and they want to understand. They want to be supported. They understand the inequities that may exist in our district, within our school building, within our family population, and they want to figure out how can they be more of a support, how can they help. And so I feel like parents being a great model for the right thing to do, coupled with our intentionality around how we do social emotional learning and take care of the whole child, will hopefully begin to help students feel that sense of it's okay, we belong here, we are united, we are a big team, which is our theme for last year.
Jonathan?
I would add social emotional learning, I think, is the way we're going as well at Fayette. But really allowing for students to have those platforms and those opportunities to really share their experiences. I mentioned, I think in the last episode, how my new principal, Ms. YBJ, allowed for students at our school to hop on a town hall meeting online virtually. And they were able to share some of their experiences that they were having within the classroom and within the community, and offer suggestions and solutions about what we can do to better serve them as far as how they're dealing with racial issues and racial unrest. And so I think really allowing for students to have those conversations, whether it is after school, whether it's during the actual class, I think is really pivotal, because it's really allowing for students to get in front of it and have the pretty much have most of the say so, because at the end of the day, it's all about our students.
And you know what? We're going to need a lot of parental involvement. I mean, we've needed parental involvement. And hopefully during this time, we're going to need a lot of, parental support. So how do you think that you all can encourage parents to be more involved? Jonathan.
I feel like, okay.
Oh, Andrew. No, that's fine. No. That's
I
fine.
think it's
Andrew, that's
Jonathan.
fine.
Sorry. I think it's important
Go
that
ahead.
students and faculty are engaged through this process, as well as parents. I think the last couple of months, second semester, we were all brand new to this. But now over the summer, with more time, we became a little better with this remote learning. So I think it's really going to take a lot for parents to really be able to push students. So you necessarily can't just log on for 20 minutes and then log off, or you can't just log on for 30 minutes and log off. You actually have to be really present to get what you need. School is not canceled. We're still in school, just like with church. We're not necessarily in church, but we still are. So you're still a student just because you're not necessarily within the building. So parents really have to push students as far as possible to be sure that they are, staying on top of what they need to.
And I'll add to
Andrew?
that. One of the things that we do is we maintain a connection. One of the things that's important to me is that making sure parents always have access to me. And so we have really been proactive in how we communicate and how we push things out. Many of our parents use our social media platforms, so we have pushed things out into our Facebook page, or they have a Facebook Messenger group for Benteen parents, and so the parents added me so they can always ask questions. I feel like parents want to know as much as they can so they can make the best decision for their own children and their families. And so part of my job as a principal is to make sure that whatever I know and whatever I'm approved to communicate, that I do so in such a way that gives the parents, the most information possible so they can make the best decision for them and their families.
Keisha, how do you think, because I find that a lot of parents want to talk to the teachers or the principal, want to go to the school when there's a problem. But what do you think, you coming from a parent's point of view, what do you think parents can do, or what will make them want to be more involved and be more supportive of the teachers and the leadership at the school?
I think what would make me want to be a little bit more involved is an easy way to become involved, meaning parents, of course, have a lot going on with work,
Right.
family life, like that. And so having a platform, you guys talked about having a platform, we want to be heard. I think most people, even our students, want to be heard. We don't want information thrown at us. Okay, we don't want an email chock full of information. We don't want necessarily, okay, that's fine, but for a website that has tons of information and be directed there all the time, we want to be able to have open dialogue, and open dialogue is a two-way street. So it's not just you dumping information our way. We want to have input, and we want to feel like the decision makers can relate to us. So often, or sometimes, some of the decision makers don't have children. And I'm not saying you don't have to have children, but maybe don't have children, maybe don't work outside of the system, maybe aren't juggling some of the same things that we're juggling. So sometimes it seems like there's a disconnect with the decision makers. So I think parents, we talk to each other, but it's kind of like teenagers talking to each other, where they're like, yeah, that's what I thought, but not bringing in the subject matter experts, right?
Right.
To help clarify. And then there are policies that parents don't know about that that influence your decisions. So we don't know about that. So we're, on this rabbit hunt or go down a rabbit trail and not knowing that this certain policy is preventing this to be considered, right? So that's why we need for administrators to be in the conversation with us. So at this point, I know that coming to the school is probably not an option. So some type of ongoing virtual platform where we could talk back to you and not just sit and listen. I think that would be.
That's a good idea. Like, what about PTA meetings? Like, will that be a Zoom call, or how will that work? Because you still have to have. It still has to be a parent-teacher conference or association.
So
It's funny because we talked about. Oh, go ahead, Jonathan.
okay. I know at my former school we had what is called School Governance Council. So our PTA association wasn't as strong. So we funneled a lot more information to our School Governance Council, which is pretty much just shared governance. And we have representatives from the classroom, we have elected officials, we have community members, and we also have parents. And so a lot of times when we have those meetings, it's an opportunity to learn about those policies and to learn about the decisions that are being made in the schools. And so I know the last SBC meeting that we had, it had to be virtual, and of course you had to send out everything 7 days in advance, according to the sunshine laws here in the state. And so ensuring that our parents and our stakeholders are all involved in these meetings, since we do not have a PTA, that was really pivotal because a lot of information was being funneled through that council. Things such as our grading policy, things such as how we were going to ensure our students were able to graduate on time. All of that information is pushed through school government, and it's also pushed through our online platforms such as Infinite Campus. And so just making sure you're tuned in to whatever those platforms are, I think is really pivotal as well.
And I'll add to that. We've been thinking about that. We did have a local school governance team who had meetings as well. We really discovered the power of Zoom and Facebook Live and how to really engage. You know, we always think about PTA. You got to come to school in the cafeteria and sit and pay, and you know, we're looking at this has really shifted how we think and how we approach parent engagement. Even to the point of like when you have parent conferences, sometimes our parents work, they can't make it, they have health issues, they can't no transportation. So now we're going to utilize all this technology that we got a chance to practice and try with in the spring semester and utilize that as school goes forward. Even whenever we return to the building, we'll have this additional strategy to engage parents. So transportation won't be an issue. Transportation won't be a barrier. We can find ways to get everyone involved and have access. So we're excited about how this will forever change the landscape of how we engage with our parents, because we've done it for 6 to 8 weeks, and our children have done it for 6 to 8 weeks. In elementary school, parents have too. They had to log the children on, so they know these platforms now. So we're going to take this new gained knowledge and make it work for the betterment of everyone.
Right.
Well, okay, I have a question. Are you, I'm sorry, are you all going to check temperatures when people come to school? Like, how will that work? Will you check temperatures before they get on the bus? Excuse me, when they get into school, or you're not going to do it? Like, how is that going to work?
And so I'll say, look, we have a new superintendent, Dr. Lisa Herring, who she just came on board July 1st. And so she's repeatedly stated that she's going to follow the guidelines by the CDC, and whatever decision that is made for the Atlanta public school system will be made with the children's best interests at heart and keeping everyone safe. And so with that being said, I'm almost certain that temperature checks will probably be a part of the conversation. But again, those details haven't been pushed out just yet for our district. I think that the target date that she set out was mid-July, and depending upon like what happens with where things go with the virus in a couple of weeks and days, like that will determine what happens as we move forward. But as most school districts in the metro area have decided that if they do go face to face, that they will have some form of checking temperature. The issue is that the cost associated with transportation and some of the hybrid models is very high. And as you know, the state, every school district had to do some major cuts to their funding. So it'll be a very interesting process about how we move forward and what this looks like and how we navigate. But I imagine that safety protocols that will be put in place based upon the guidance from the Centers for Disease Control.
Okay. What were you about to say, Jonathan?
Oh, I was going to pretty much echo what Andrew said. Fayette is also in that making decision round and really following the guidance of the CDC as well as the state. So they haven't made a final decision as it relates to temperature checks and any other precautionary measures. It will be interesting to see what that will look like, especially in a high school setting where students are coming from all different directions at all different times to see what that temperature situation will look like. But they haven't made a decision just yet.
Keisha, what are you doing to prepare your son to go back to school?
Actually, we are leaning more towards him going digital, the digital
Oh,
learning
okay.
option. That is really what we're leaning more towards at this point. But I did have a question about maybe the administrators here can speak to, with teachers being charged with creating a safe learning environment, an ideal learning environment. And then the supply list that students have to bring in sometimes. And I know teachers oftentimes have to purchase a lot of the supplies that they use in the classroom. Is there any type of maybe stipend or grant or something that's afforded to teachers so that they can provide hand sanitizer, the new things that will be on the list, hand sanitizers, wipes, face guards, whatever it is, to make sure that the environment is safe?
I'll
Or
share
is
that
that
from
on the
Atlanta.
student and parent?
Yes, one of the things that that has been communicated with us is that I believe that schools will be able to purchase, like, as a school, I already had like hand sanitizer stations placed around, like, in extra ones in the office, in the clinic, in different places. And so schools will be able to purchase some of that. The district is going to provide some additional resources as well. I can't remember. I feel like the district might be looking to see, can they help school with personal PPE. And we don't know if most staff probably have their own, but we don't know if the district will be able to provide PPE for the students, for, like, how many, like, we don't know those particulars about how that happens or how it gets down to, but I know as a principal, I have flexibility with some of the funds that I have set aside for supplies to be able to purchase some things that going to have a small stockpile to school in case of emergency, or in case something goes wrong, in case a child gets sick and, get sick in their mask, we have to give them another mask. We want to have those things on standby. Because elementary school kids get sick, and the little ones just let it go. They don't even just like, I don't feel well. It's like boom. And so we just want to make sure we are prepared for any scenario that could come up. But I believe, and I'm sure Fayette was probably the same way, most districts are trying to figure out how to provide PPE, if they need to provide PPE, how much, how many. But right now we just don't know. We're just trying to see on what model we're going to select in terms of opening. And I think those kind of particulars will be worked out once that decision is made.
And what about teachers who have compromised immune system? Like, I'm
Right.
concerned
You know,
about them.
it's interesting that you bring that up, because again, I fall into an interesting category, because while I'm also, half of my brain is, concerned about my son going to Grayson High School, I work at a different high school. And originally, the high school was not requiring the use of a mask by everyone. But just yesterday, I think it was, they are now requiring it of everyone. So I feel a little bit better about going, into the school. But it is a concern, because if you really think about it, I know that early on there may have been some misinformation floating around that young people aren't affected, and and we're seeing now that that's becoming less and less true. And so the thought of young people going back to school was like, oh, they're invincible. They'll snap back if they do get it. It's it's minimal downtime for them. But guess who's older? I am, the teachers are, the counselors are, the administrators are, right? We are in a high risk category, right? So, yes, I do think children need to go back to school, meaning you speak of the whole child, right? The social and emotional, my son needs interaction. He's an only child. He's tired of being around us, and he needs to be around his peers. And I do want that for him. And it does affect, I'm seeing him kind of like going into his shell sometimes, and you just wonder, as a parent, what's really going on? Isolation isn't good for us, right? So, so there's just a lot to consider as it relates to the children, but also the staff, us. That's there. So I'm happy to now understand that my school district requires a mask. So that's better for me.
Keith, I have one quick question. How has it been having your son there all the time now? All the time.
All the time. Well, okay, I'm just going to be honest. I kind of love it because, remember the two viruses I talked about. There's COVID in the
Right.
world, and then
Oh,
there's
right. Yeah.
I have a young
Right.
Black male, right?
Right.
So this goes deeper
Right.
than, you know, us making this what seems like a split decision to go back to school or not, right? It's go back to this world, you know, and it's not that I'm trying to shelter him, but I'm just giving you an honest mommy question
Right. Yeah. Right.
answer. And
Mhm.
but no, it hasn't been bad at all. If I had to say, he's more of an introvert. I think if he were more
Okay.
extroverted and like into all the clubs and into all the sports and all that, I think it would
Yeah.
be culture shock. But he
Mhm.
finds contentment, you know, playing his video games and doing his thing, you know, talking to his friends through the game or whatever, which that's not great either. But it's been different. I'm tired of cooking. How about that?
Yes.
Breakfast, lunch, dinner. Like, it's like
Yes.
you know, and then I'm working, you know, and then trying to help him with his classes. And then I didn't mention this. He actually had surgery at the end of March, and he couldn't walk.
Oh, wow.
So it was
Oh,
like
wow.
having an infant. So there's been
Right.
layers of excitement at our house.
Right.
But so, you know, but you know, and at the end of the day, the decision has to be made. His health and safety comes first, as it relates to
Yeah, I
what we
thought
will do in the fall.
it was funny. I asked one of my girlfriends, I was telling her that they were talking about, you know, having the kids do virtual school. And she was like, oh, no, I don't want to teach my kid. I'm like, what?
You know what? And I get
She
that
wants
with
to
a
send
lot
the
of
kid off.
my friends and coworkers, you know, they have that same sentiment. I mean, it's difficult. You know, I think if he
Yeah,
were
it's
younger,
difficult.
he's a rising junior, and he's very strong academically in honors and gifted classes. So thank God. I'm just so thankful. But some households don't have that, you know, where some of
Right.
them have middle schoolers and elementary that need you to be at that computer with them at all times.
Right. Right.
That's
Yeah.
difficult. How
Especially if you have a job or you're doing your own
you have a
business or,
job?
you know, yeah. Yeah.
How do you do that? How do you do that?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
those
you
are
guys see,
tough decisions that our administrators have to make. So kudos to you guys that are going and been in all these
yes.
meetings. It is not easy. There are 6 million scenarios that you would have to consider, right? So, so I know that, you know, there's a lot of back and forth online, social media, people bickering, you know, about let them go back, don't let them go back. What about this? What about that? So, I don't envy you guys in making these kinds of decisions, but I do thank you for listening to the parents and, you know, the decisions that they have to make for their own families. It's a tough one.
It's a tough
Thank
one.
you.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask you, principals, do you all have, well, I'm sure you do. How about you giving us a final word on this reopening of the schools during this pandemic and a positive thought for the parents and the students to kind of take with them? We'll start with you, Jonathan.
I would say as we enter into this new normal, to just extend grace like never before. Just as God has extended us grace, we are extending grace to each other. Understanding that, you know, each moment is important and to cherish each moment and to live in the now. I think we're just living in interesting times. We're dealing with 2 pandemics we talked about. And so just really, you know, loving on each other and just really understanding the impact of what that love can mean. And, you know, something small as calling somebody, you know, once a week or even driving by someone's house and honking the horn, but just really extending love, grace, and being kind-hearted people in this tough and crazy world. I think is really going to get us through these next couple of weeks, next couple of months, and hopefully, you know, into the next year. So, you know, just stay prayed up, stay focused. Students, you know, stay focused, get this work done. You're still a student. You're still learning, and you know you still got to get your work done. So stay focused in that regard. Parents, you know, stay on your kids. Reach out to admin, reach out to teachers, reach out to faculty and staff. We're here for you, and we're here to serve you at the end of the day. So, yeah.
Andrew?
I think I would say I would encourage parents and everyone really to just take a moment and breathe. This is uncharted territory. No one has all the answers, and I think parents have to realize that administrators are caught in almost in a lose-lose situation. We're never going to satisfy everyone. If we go back to school, somebody will be angry. If we stay, do virtual, someone will be angry. If we do hybrid, they'll be angry. If we cancel sports, they'll be. So we're not going to please everyone, but just as Jonathan said, give us grace and realize that we are really trying to do the best we can with the information we've been given with where things are in our society. It is never in our lifetime that I think we would have faced something like this. This has really shifted so many aspects of our everyday lives. And I just ask that, that parents and, and community members and just give education a chance to be different. Give education a chance to imagine something totally new and be okay with it. Be flexible with it. There are going to be some heavy moments, some dark roads. There's going to be some frustrations, and we get it. We all are experiencing this. We're living this life and building the plane and flying at the same time. So it's just these pandemics that we're facing are not unique, but they are unique for such a time as this. And so just being focused on keeping the main thing. Your mental well-being and your safety and your sanctity is of utmost importance. I tell my staff, if you don't take care of yourself, I can't expect you to take care of the children. Because when you're human, there's a human side to every one of us. And so self-care is important. And I think maintaining self-care and then understanding that, we're going to make some mistakes. We're going to try to do our best to get it right. But just as Jonathan said, give us grace. And for parents, let the children sign up, do the assignments. We should not have parents saying, we're not doing the assignment because blah, blah, blah. If you need a resource, if you're missing something, reach out. We have people who are giving, who want to help, who want to support. If you are at home, you need some support, need some materials, reach out. We want to be a support system for you, not a point of frustration. But they don't have a 5-year-old at home and not enroll him in kindergarten because you don't want to do virtual or hybrid or face-to-face. Still enroll him. You never know the digital connections and the way things can happen, even in the midst of a pandemic. We had kids who had virtual play dates. And sometimes the children just want to get on the call, see each other, and talk to their friends. Like, one of the best blessings of being an elementary school principal is the innocence of children. And it is my hope and prayer that we adults don't allow the pettiness or the nastiness of politics and adulthood trickle down to impact our most precious resource, and that's our children.
Right. That's true. And thank you so much, Jonathan. Thank you. I want to thank you. Thank our guests. Thank you so much for being here. And thank everybody for joining us and being a part of this. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm gonna have to do that again. I'm sorry. I am so hot in this room. I feel like I'm gonna pass out.
Don't pass out.
Okay.
Don't pass out.
Yeah. Right. So let me do this again. Thank you so much for tuning in for part 1, 2, and 3 of this episode of Reopening Schools During a Pandemic. I want to thank you so much to our guests for being a part of this. We appreciate you. You've given us so much great information, and we feel more comfortable looking forward to this new school year. I feel a little more at peace. So thank you so much. Again, family, thank you for tuning in, and please be safe out there. And remember, I don't know if you can see my shirt, but there's good, there's great, and then there's God, period. I just got my shirt. I ordered it from the bookstore yesterday. I got it yesterday. So you go to our website and order some God, period merchandise. Thank you again for tuning in.
Bye.
Bye.
See you.